Hi, everyone. Yeah, pleasure to be here. As you heard in Kathy's intro, Kathy and I go way back. We actually met in Shanghai in 2004 at the Shanghai Biennale. And yeah, there was a group of artists from Vancouver that were showing there, and then we just hung out. And so cool that we get to keep this friendship going and in all these new places. I brought a bunch of material on my laptop with me today, and I'm going to go pretty fast, but feel free to stop me. And also, hopefully we will have time for some conversation at the end. That's always the part that I look forward to. This is a really early piece of mine. I first studied art in Düsseldorf in the 90s. And Düsseldorf was one of the first art schools that had a video program, and was one of the professors was Namjoon Paik, and he had this idea of video being more like a sculptural medium. It was not, you didn't train to make videos for the Cartoon Network or it was really kind of a sculptural approach to video, and this was one of my pieces that I made. It's like a hand crank TV. So this is like a chocolate powder box, and then I cut out this little window, and then if you turn the crank, this kind of panorama unfolds. It's kind of a pre-cinematic device made after the invention of television. And I actually started making them as a kid, and I continue to make them to this day. I made one just 2 weeks ago. In '94, I moved to San Francisco. I did a year of study abroad from Düsseldorf, but then I liked it so much that I just never went back. And there I radically changed my practice. While in Düsseldorf, I tried to make very kind of conceptual, text-based work. In San Francisco, I just wanted to make narrative films. But then one other thing that happened in San Francisco is that I started a band with people that I met in art school, and we called ourselves the Helen Lundy Trio. And this is later. This is us giving a concert in 2015, and I just want to play a minute or so from one of our music videos.
Blue, yellow, red, green, green, red, yellow, blue, green, green, yellow, yellow.
Here's a few more seconds from that live concert. it was pretty nerdy. We only had Casio keyboards, and then we wrote our own lyrics, and they were pretty simple. But to make this video, it's so. If you look at it now, you would think it took like 5 minutes to make, but this was made. I think it was made on an Amiga 2000 or on a Media 100, these ancient video computers. So it was a hard effort to make this video. And I was really kind of committed to this abstract digital language. But then the next project I made was representational. I just thought that abstract is kind of hermetic and doesn't really invite people in the way that representational imagery does. This is a drawing I made based on a photo in a real estate magazine that I found. And it's, very simple, but it was joyful. It was the first time that I made like a drawing in Photoshop. And then I animated it. I'm not going to show the animation now. And in the animation, nothing really happens. The only thing that happens is that it turns from daytime to dusk, and then from dusk to nighttime, and the lights come on and off. I feel it was a little bit of a nod to Empire by Andy Warhol, a film where a building is like the main actor and nothing else happens. And for me, this was almost like just an exercise and nothing much to it. But I think for people growing up in a place like this, it's almost like a haunting image, the American suburb. After this, I started another project which kind of followed on the heels of this. I wanted to expand this exercise of translating a photograph into a digital drawing by taking a moving photograph and then translating it into a moving drawing. And the first thing that kind of popped into my head was the TV broadcast of the O.J. Simpson verdict. And the whole exercise took me about a year to make, for a video that's just under 3 minutes long. And I'm just going to show you also an excerpt from this video.
Mrs. Robertson.
Superior Court of California, County of Los Angeles, in the matter of the people of the state of California versus Orenthal James Simpson, case number BA097211. We, the jury, in the above entitled action, find the defendant Orenthal James Simpson not guilty of the crime of murder in violation of Penal Code Section 187A, a felony upon Nicole Brown Simpson, a human being, as charged in count 1 of the information. Superior Court of the State of California, County of Los Angeles, in the matter of the people of the State of California versus Orenthal James Simpson. We, the jury, in the above entitled action, find the defendant Orenthal James Simpson not guilty of the crime of murder in violation of Penal Code Section 187A, a felony upon Ronald Lyle Goldman, a human being, as charged in count 2 of the information. We, the jury, in the above entitled action, further find the special circumstance that the defendant, Orenthal James Simpson, has in this case been convicted of at least 1 crime of murder of the first degree and 1 or more crimes of murder of the first or second degree to be not true. Signed this 2nd day of October 1995, Juror 230. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, is this your verdict? So say you one, so say you all.
Yeah. I made this video in my first year of grad school. I started it before grad school and then finished it during my first year of grad school. And I think to this date, it's the video that I made that gets played the most. And I only say that to the students in the room, that I think to take art school serious as a place to make art and not just like as a place where you prepare to be an artist. I think art school is really a place where you have the opportunity to be an artist. This is the video, the same video that you just saw in a show at MoMA in New York in 2007, and the show was called Out of Time. And to the left are some paintings by Gerhard Richter. It's called the Baader-Meinhof cycle, where he painted the news photographs of the suicides of a terrorist group in Germany. And then through the doorway, there's a peek of Library by Rachel Whiteread. And then to the right, there's a painting by Luc Tuymans. And I was so happy to be in the company of these superstar artists, but also I thought that this placement was kind of telling of what this video did. On the one hand, it's some kind of like a history painting, and then it's also kind of a ghost image. I think of the work by Rachel Whiteread, which I really like, where she just makes these casts of objects, of creating these very impressive ghost images. From there on, I just tried to expand this project that I had begun in grad school. This was my first gallery show in New York. Also, no, that was in 2005 at Murray Guy, a really cool gallery that unfortunately since then has closed. And this video triptych is called Lennon Sonntag Boys. I actually also showed this at the Charles Scott Gallery in Vancouver. And I always land on my subject matter very intuitively. I knew I wanted to do something with Joseph Beuys, and then I thought, who could I put into the frame with him? And then I thought, John Lennon and Susan Sontag. And then the three of them together do something kind of interesting, I find. On the one hand, they're all, in a way, New York images. John Lennon was one of the most famous residents of New York. Susan Sontag was the critical, intellectual voice of New York. And then Joseph Beuys is seen giving a talk at the New School in New York. So it really fit into my first gallery show in New York. The other thing that was going on was, this was made in 2003 and 2004, right at the outset of the Iraq War. And this piece is very much also a piece about art activism. John Lennon is shown during his Bed In for Peace with Yoko Ono, which was a protest against the Vietnam War. And then Susan Sontag is doing a lecture on photography as an instrument of protest. And Joseph Beuys is giving a speech on social sculpture, which is like a way of expanding sculpture into a tool to change society. This is another one also reoccurring thing in my work is the Beatles. For some reason, you just saw John Lennon and Lennon Sonntag Boys, and here's the Beatles. This is a projection on the Miami Symphony Building by Frank Gehry. They show every year, they have like video programming, and they showed this one video of mine, and I'm just going to share a little bit of it. The younger ones of you might not even recognize the soundtrack. It's this like punk hymn from San Francisco from the 70s, California, über alles. And I matched it up with the Beatles doing Twist and Shout. And did this as an homage to the San Francisco filmmaker Bruce Conner, who had just died, and there was like a tribute exhibition, and that was my contribution to the tribute exhibition. But I feel there was also some kind of serious thought behind it. That, you know, sound and image are two very different materials, almost like clay and metal or paper and you name it. And they can really be independent from each other. We're so used to creating sync sound with these cameras that we have, but it's oftentimes funner for them to be slightly out of sync. Oh yeah, I wanted to show this because this is the book project that Kathy and I did. The idea was to make this, it's up in Kathy's office if anyone's interested to flip through it. It's almost like a flip book, turning the Odessa step sequence by Sergei Eisenstein into a book format. And I chose to do it as a watercolor painting. I thought like this language that I had developed could easily be transformed to any type of media, but it was also a real journey, because it took me a few months to get into it, and it took me almost a year to paint the sequence of pages that's in the book. And then parallel to that, we recreated these shots as photographs. They're not in the book. This is the San Francisco poet Kevin Killian, who recently passed away. And then this is like every student, friend, and so forth that I could round up to recreate the sequence on the roof of the San Francisco Art Institute, which is also this very long staircase. This is a kind of impromptu video installation at the Headland Center for the Arts, an artist residency center just north of San Francisco. And I'm playing a video called The City of Nature. And I'm also just going to play a few seconds from that. Yeah, it's this assemblage of nature scenes. They're fairly unrecognizable, but they're from the movies that you would expect, like from Brokeback Mountain. The little creek is from Brokeback Mountain, and there's a river from Fitzgeraldo by Werner Herzog. And I originally made this film as a public art installation to be seen at Madison Square Park in New York. They have a huge public art program, but then they also commission videos and films to be shown in a corner of the park on these LED screens. And like I never really sought it out, but I kind of like happened into this whole public art practice, and I really enjoy it. It's a privilege to be able to show your work at a gallery or a museum, but to be able to show it in public where it's confronted with passerbys who don't really seek it out is, I find, super rewarding. And I don't specialize in it, but when I'm given the opportunity, I usually embrace it. And it happened a few years later again. This is a small sculptural piece called Hand Vote. I did this for the inaugural exhibition at the Vera Center for Art and Politics in New York in 2008. And 2008 was the first Obama election, and there was like a real anxiety in the air, and artists did all this very political work. And this work, I guess, is political, but it's more like looking at politics from afar and looking at the mechanism of voting. I just Googled hand vote and found this picture and made this object, and this is what it looked like from the side. And it was in this group show, and then for a long time it was just standing in my studio. And then Kathleen Ritter, who was a curator at the Vancouver Art Gallery, came to visit me and saw it and asked me then, can we do this really big in Vancouver? And so we did. I don't know if some of you were around. It was also set up in this time of year. It was freezing cold, and this is what it looked like when it was all together. But the people who fabricated I felt, incredible job. And it was really, I was a little bit shocked when I saw it, because while the little sculpture was almost like a joke about democracy, this one was this like celebration, or I don't know. But then there was all these weird things, because I'm really just tracing photographs. And then I remember some of the people asked, like, is that Karl Lagerfeld in the bottom left corner? And Tim Lee, I don't know if he's in the room, but a friend of mine from Vancouver said, you should call this sculpture "Who Wants Donuts?" But I didn't. And yeah, I like the backside of it too. It looks just like the backside of a amusement park ride or so. And then I was invited to do the sculpture again in Washington. Oh no, I wanted to show these. Kathy sent me these. This is like the Google Street View that was on Google at the time, and they blurred out the faces, And then Kathy also sent me this, which is a student from Emily Carr University who ended up with the hand. I don't know how, but it's in his backyard. And then I was invited to do this sculpture again in Washington, D.C. They have this public art festival. And I didn't pay attention to who was depicted, but I noticed that in Washington, D.C., if you go there, you can't make it like a crowd of people who all have the same skin tone, because Washington, D.C. just doesn't look like that. And that's why I'm so happy to be part of this class called I'll Be Your Mirror. My strong belief is that artworks are really mirrors, no matter what they are, and people want to see themselves in it. And so I was like, the people in the hand vote in Washington, D.C. have to at least look a little bit like the people in Washington, D.C. This is another public art piece for the San Francisco International Airport. They invited me to make a proposal, and we did a site visit, and I said, I want to do the Beatles coming out of an airplane. And the proposal was accepted, and I got to do it. It's a hand-painted wooden diorama. It looks like a digital print, but it was also weeks and weeks of painting with tape and a team of friends, and then bringing the individual wood pieces through security into the airport. But it works really well there. It's a instantly recognizable image. 5-year-olds recognize who the people are, as do international travelers. And then the Beatles do have a very special connection to San Francisco. They gave their last live performance at Candlestick Park in San Francisco, which is right next to the airport. So I feel it fit there. And once I landed on something, I usually just kind of try to exhaust the idea. So following the Beatles, I did a kind of geometric abstraction superimposed over Joni Mitchell. And then I'm showing this. Joni Mitchell is Canadian, and so is Leonard Cohen. And I think it was in 2017, the Musée d'Art Contemporain in Montreal organized an exhibition, like a tribute exhibition for Leonard Cohen, and they invited me to participate. I think they saw the Beatles Über California video and they thought maybe you can do something similar with Leonard Cohen, but I'm really not an expert at Leonard Cohen, and they sent me some material and I ended up making a piece using spoken word performance by Leonard Cohen. I'll just show you a little bit of that.
The other time I was in quarters such as these was in the Verdun Mental Hospital, Montreal. I was visiting a friend. He was on the top floor, and I asked him, for he was still lucid, where can I get a coffee? He said, downstairs. That was one of those famous last words. I commenced the descent of similar stone corridors, and I found myself in a kind of arena, which was surrounded by closed doors. It had been a hot afternoon, and I had removed my jacket, as I am wont to do. I had left it with my friend, who, though mentally ill, was no thief. I suspect he wasn't even mentally ill. He was doing this instead of college.
The abstraction that's superimposed over the image is an early 20th century film from Germany, Rhythm 21, Rhythmus 21 from Hans Richter. And I just like slapped it onto the Leonard Cohen performance the same way that I put Mondrian over the Beatles and Hans Albers over Joni Mitchell. And when you do that, all these kind of weird things, for example, I like when he says like some kind of arena and then this kind of like square appears over his face. And I feel, yeah, all these visual coincidences happen that I really enjoy. Yeah, I'm into coincidences. I will elaborate on that. This is a drawing I made in 2015, I want to say. This is kind of a remake of a Rembrandt painting that was stolen from the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum in 1990. And I found this image on the FBI has a database of stolen art, and I thought like I could just use that as a source material for a few drawings. And while that was happening, this story broke in the New York Times that a surveillance tape had surfaced from the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum that might lead to the whereabouts of the paintings. So it was not recorded on the night of the theft. Did you all hear about the theft? It's okay, some shaking of the heads. So this was the largest art theft in the United States ever. They stole 13 paintings, among them 2 large Rembrandts, Vermeer, Degas, Manet, like all the big European masters, and it's thought of as some astronomical sum, like hundreds of millions dollars worth of paintings, and the paintings never resurfaced. And the thieves also stole the surveillance tapes when they stole the paintings, but they found a surveillance tape from the night before where you see some people entering the museum in the middle of the night, and based on that they tried to identify the thieves. So I thought this is kind of a cool opportunity to recreate the 13 artworks that were stolen and showing them. And then I hope that, maybe the FBI catches the thieves and that will kind of put a spin on the show. But the surveillance tape led nowhere. But I did recreate the surveillance tapes also. So the surveillance tapes were playing on the front desk of the gallery. And in the gallery, you could see my recreations. And this show became maybe my most popular show with museum curators. It traveled to a number of the museums that Kathy listed earlier. This is a view of the Mead Art Museum in Amherst, Massachusetts. They showed the work in this period room, and I really enjoyed that installation. So you had these very contemporary, sleek LED light boxes right next to period stained glass windows. And they had a very similar visual effect. This is my version of the Vermeer, the concert that was stolen. Oh yeah, and then along with in this traveling museum show, I added another video that I called "The Crime of Art." It's a little bit like the nature video that I showed earlier, only this time I didn't excerpt scenes of nature from movies, but scenes of art theft. So there's like a whole series of Hollywood movies where art is stolen, and I compiled them all into this like mega theft.
It's down here.
Whereas the famous Istanbul dagger contains the 4 world's most priceless emeralds, the Topkapi treasury is also famous for the extraordinary ornamental
Portate dai sultani nei tempi passati.
Yeah, you could see. So one thing I did is that I redrew everything in the movie except the art. And so the art is real and reality is not. Next piece is, I feel, kind of different. This is a still from a watercolor animation that I made in 2018 and 2019 and was shown as a billboard at the opening of the 2019 NFL football season in LA. But I first showed it as an animation, and the animation is just 1.5 minutes long, so I feel you might be able to endure. Here it is. So this is the piece that I showed at the 2019 Whitney Biennial. And I didn't make the piece with the exhibition in mind, but obviously it was a very kind of resonant context for the piece, because it's like called the Whitney Museum of American Art, and then the national anthem was the soundtrack. So it seemed like the perfect home for this piece. The curators pretty much called the shots. I couldn't choose a location for it to be shown, and they decided to show it like right as you get off the elevator onto the exhibition floor. And as a video artist, you oftentimes hope that they give you this like discreet room with carpet and awesome speakers and so forth. But this was very much just kind of out in the open where people are milling around. But I feel honestly it added to the reception of the piece. I think other artists, you could hear the national anthem just kind of playing through half of the exhibition. And yeah. One other thing that I feel is worth mentioning also is that it's all hand-painted watercolor. This is not like a computer pen that achieves a watercolor effect. And I feel I owe that to the project that I did with Kathy, which was like my apprenticeship in watercolor painting. And then here I could go for it full force. I don't know, this is kind of this is my pandemic project. This was kind of a sequel to it. I was invited to do a show in New York at Ryan Lee Gallery, and I painted the fall and the building and the fall of the Berlin Wall, and I projected it onto the cinder block wall. I thought of it as kind of a self-reflexive video sculpture, a wall that thinks about its own construction and destruction. Yeah, and then I had the opportunity to show it in Berlin also, and the gallery that showed it in Berlin also projected it onto the actual remainders of the Berlin Wall in like a one-night intervention. And then just before the show opened, this event happened, which was the Taliban takeover of Afghanistan. And the images of people climbing the wall of the Kabul airport was just like so strikingly similar to the images of East Berliners climbing the Berlin Wall that I felt I had to include it in the show. And obviously they're politically two very different events. But then there's also this, it's people trying to overcome physical barriers to achieve some personal freedom. Okay, and this is what I'm working on right now. I've always looked for an excuse to draw the Golden Gate Bridge. It's the big architectural landmark of San Francisco, but it's kind of a no-no. Like you can't take a picture of the Golden Gate Bridge if you're a serious artist. This is March 2020. I don't know if any of you remember it. There was this large cruise ship which had just left San Francisco to go to Hawaii. And that's when the first cases of COVID were reported. And then they decided to turn the ship, and they found out that some passengers who had been on the ship before had tested positive. So they stopped the voyage of the ship and then eventually asked it to turn around and dock in the port of Oakland, where I live. And this is kind of a drawing of the ship coming back to San Francisco and crossing the Golden Gate Bridge. And it was kind of a moment. There were like people on the bridge cheering, and then there were people at the bottom of the bridge taking pictures, and also all the people on the boat were kind of cheering when the ship was finally coming back. So this is like a LED light box. And this is a shot of my studio. This is what it looks like right now. The work is not finished. This is just work in progress. What you see is a large flat screen monitor hung on top of a wallpaper. And the wallpaper shows the Fort Mason Center in San Francisco. It's an old military base that's now a cultural center. And during the early days of the pandemic, it was like used as a pop-up drive-in movie theater, and they were showing movies there. So I'm basically just like putting my own pandemic movie in this pandemic movie theater.
Well, the sample collection continues from guests, or continued from guests, and crew members previously contacted for testing. We expect the test results sometime in the near future. As previously advised, we anticipate that we will receive the first results tomorrow morning. We will certainly keep you informed as we receive updates from US CDC and their lab testing partners. As a reminder, we do not have any confirmed cases of COVID-19 on the Grand Princess.
I left my heart in San Francisco, high on a hill. Climb halfway to the stars.
That's how far I got. So I normally also just kind of like grab things from the internet and use them in my work, and I don't worry about permissions and things like that. I'm from the generation of early hip hop, and I think sampling and so on is kind of part of what I do. Then when I did the national anthem piece at the Whitney Biennial, it kind of changed. People advised me that I should really get in contact with the musicians and get their permission for it to be shown. And I did, and luckily they agreed to lend me the arrangement of the national anthem. And then for this piece, for the longest time, it had a different soundtrack, and then this album came out, Lady Gaga and Tony Bennett, a couple of years ago, and I was like, oh wow, Lady Gaga and Tony Bennett, and my wife, who's from Germany, had never heard of Tony Bennett. And so I played her the song, I Left My Heart in San Francisco, and then it kind of struck me that that must be the soundtrack for this film. And through some kind of winding roads, I tried to get the rights for the Tony Bennett recording, but they denied, or like they asked for some astronomical amount of money. And so this recording that you hear is soundtrack that I commissioned. It's an orchestra, like a jazz orchestra from San Francisco called the Red Room Orchestra. And the vocalist that you heard is Petra Hayden. She's a jazz singer from Los Angeles. And everyone that I played it to said like she sounds 10 times better than Tony Bennett. Okay. I have a lot more, but I feel this is kind of a good amount. Shall we keep it at that? Okay.